In today's video, we'll explore 4 critical factors that lead to the downfall of a person. These aren't just theoretical concepts, they actively erode our relationships, disturb our inner peace, weaken our spiritual life, and create distance between us and God. Understanding these reasons and learning how to eliminate them from our lives is crucial if we want to live in the fullness of God's blessings and experience true peace, fulfillment, and success. The first destructive force we need to address is ego. Ego, or an inflated sense of self-importance, not only alienates us from others but also distances us from God. In the Bible, ego is condemned as a sin and is often cited as a primary cause of downfall. Proverbs 16 verse 18 warns that pride precedes destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. A striking example of this is the story of King Nebuchadnezzar, who, in his arrogance, attributed the prosperity of Babylon to his own greatness rather than to God. God humbled him by stripping him of his human dignity, reducing him to a state where he lived like an animal. It was only when Nebuchadnezzar acknowledged God's sovereignty that his kingdom was restored to him. This story teaches us that unchecked ego not only damages our mental and spiritual health but can also have severe external consequences. In our modern world, ego often leads to personal ruin, whether in relationships, at work, or in society at large. It clouds our judgment and leads to errors when we place ourselves above others. To counteract ego, we must practice humility, recognizing daily that all we have is by God's grace. As Matthew 23 verse 12 reminds us, those who humble themselves will be exalted. Self-reflection, giving credit to God, and consciously practicing humility can gradually diminish the ego's hold on our lives. The second factor is greed. Greed, or the excessive desire for wealth, possessions, and worldly pleasures, is a significant sin according to the Bible. It corrupts our souls and wreaks havoc on every area of our lives. In 1 Timothy 6 verse 10, it is stated that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. When we become obsessed with material wealth, we lose sight of our true purpose. The story of Ananias and Sapphira from the early church illustrates the destructive power of greed. Their deceitful attempt to withhold part of their wealth, despite promising it to God, led to their demise. This story underscores that greed not only erodes our moral values but also endangers our very souls. Greed creates a sense of perpetual dissatisfaction, leading to mental unrest and harming those around us. To combat greed, we must cultivate contentment, learning to find joy in life's simple pleasures. As 1 Timothy 6 verse 6 teaches, godliness with contentment is great gain. Trusting in God to meet our needs allows us to focus on spiritual riches rather than material wealth. The third reason for man's downfall is jealousy. Jealousy is a destructive force that consumes us from within. The Bible portrays jealousy as a poison that stunts our spiritual growth and leads to our ruin. Proverbs 14 verse 30 tells us that envy rots the bones, indicating that jealousy is not only an emotional and mental affliction but also harms our physical well-being. The story of Cain and Abel is a vivid example of jealousy's destructive power. Cain's jealousy of his brother Abel, whose offering was favored by God, drove him to commit the first murder. As a result, Cain was condemned to a life of wandering, estranged from society. Jealousy not only destroys individuals but also damages communities, breeding mistrust and breaking relationships. To overcome jealousy, we must cultivate gratitude, appreciating what we have and celebrating the successes of others. Focusing on our own goals rather than comparing ourselves to others can help us let go of jealousy. Turning to God in prayer for guidance and peace can also help us overcome these negative feelings. Lastly, unbelief is a significant cause of spiritual ruin. Unbelief, or a lack of faith in God and His promises, is the greatest obstacle to receiving His grace. Hebrews 11 verse 6 emphasizes that without faith, it is impossible to please God. The Israelites' journey after their exodus from Egypt provides a cautionary tale of the consequences of unbelief. Despite God's guidance, their lack of faith led them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, preventing an entire generation from entering the promised land. Unbelief weakens us mentally and emotionally, fostering negativity, fear, and insecurity. It also undermines relationships and erodes community trust. To combat unbelief, we must actively practice faith, starting with small acts of trust in God. Studying the Bible deepens our understanding of His Word and strengthens our faith. Patience is also key. Trusting in God's timing and plan helps us remain faithful even when immediate answers are not apparent. Regular prayer and meditation draw us closer to God, reinforcing our faith and dispelling doubt. In conclusion, these four destructive forces, ego, greed, jealousy, and unbelief, are significant obstacles on our spiritual journey. However, with God's grace and guidance, we can overcome them. By embracing humility, contentment, gratitude, and faith, we align ourselves with God's will and open our lives to His blessings. Take a moment today to reflect on these teachings, and commit to distancing yourself from these negative influences. If this message resonates with you, please like the video, share it with others, and type Amen in the comments. Remember, with the Lord's blessings, you can find the solution to all your problems. Amen.